I can't reiterate enough how much the prison system is an every minute, every hour, every day onslaught on who you are as a person and the value that you have in society. My name is Jesse Krimes. I'm an artist and I live in Pennsylvania. Growing up, I was the kid that every other parent told their kids not to hang out with because I would end up getting people in trouble. But I always was a maker, and so I would always create. It was like the one activity that just kind of occupied my time. I remember taking a trip with my art class to the Metropolitan Museum, which was pretty revolutionary for me. I just remember being blown away by the scale of works, the kind of textures of the paint and the objects. From high school, I went to art school, the first person in my family who went to college. Things started to solidify for me there, that other people see value in me. I grew up very poor, and the only way that I was able to make it through school was to sell drugs. I ended up getting indicted for selling cocaine. They really tried to kind of use all of the leverage of the federal system to get me to cooperate. And when I refused to cooperate and snitch on other people while we're awaiting trial for a year, they transferred me to solitary confinement. Solitary created a very deep moment of self-reflection. Prior to that, I had never thought of myself as an artist. I thought of myself as, honestly, a criminal. And I was kind of thinking through everything that had led me to this moment and everything that I need to do to never put myself in this position again. And so in that moment, it was a very conscious decision on my part that I was going to use every single minute of my time to create artwork, because that was the one thing that they couldn't take away from me.
So you get your placement with a laser? Or just by sight?
I've done it just by sight before, but it's definitely better with a...
I would say with laser, just to make sure we don't have to go back.
Yeah. The year that I was in solitary confinement, I created Purgatory, which is a series of 292 prison-issued bars of soap that have mugshots from my local newspaper with small portraits of celebrities and politicians as a way to complicate the notion of who we view as an offender. The soap is a very specific material of cleansing and purification of these damaging narratives that were being put out into the world.
So here's a tray of ones that have all been pulled out of one of the boxes. But it'd be great if you just want to talk a little bit more about the transfer, like how you actually figured out how to get the image and some of the color to go to the tops of the soaps.
To make the soaps, I would take a full-size bar and I would carve them to match the size of the portraits as they were displayed in the newspaper. You know, we had little AAA batteries that we could get on commissary. And so I took one of them, and my bunk bed was kind of loose on the cement floor, so I was able to lift it up and smash it. And basically created a little cutting device. And to transfer the ink, I took a piece of toilet paper and just kind of wadded it up to make like a stamp. And I would dip that in a cup of water, make the surface of the soap damp, and I would take my finger and rub it until it got a little bit of viscosity, and then I would press the newsprint image on it, and then you are left with the inverse image. I remember having so many of them, and the guards would come and do shakedowns, thinking, oh shit, I need to get these out of here or else they'll get confiscated. And so then I started thinking about how I could actually create something that would ensure that these very delicate slivers of soap could make it through the postal system. And the same way that I was kind of creating artwork as a way to disconnect from the system, other people were playing cards. I would just take a soap and kind of place it over, trace around that, and then cut that out and use that as the template for every card that goes through. Glue them together with toothpaste, and then insert the soap into the container and then cover it with a different face card in that window, because it becomes almost like a prison cell in a way. And so it was a bit of like elevating the offender and lowering royalty, creating an equal playing field.
Have you noticed a shift in the sort of readability or legibility of the faces over time?
I think they've actually held up quite well, because it's been, what, over 15 years now? When I began the initial conversation with Lisa, the curator of the show, she had brought up this archive of Bertillon, or effectively the original mugshot.
So these are the Bertillon cartes de visite that will be opposite purgatory, all of alleged, suspected anarchists. This was the standard that Bertillon used when he invented this system, a frontal portrait, and then on the back you can see all of the measurements. Once you reach a certain age, your bones no longer grow, so if you took a measurement, it wouldn't change over time, and it would have been used to help identify people when they were walking around or at train stations.
Bertillon was using his system very specifically to create a singular way of seeing people. I think just directly kind of hit me in a way that felt very important to contend with this history. The idea that they're like being protected in these kind of cases, I think is like an interesting parallel in the playing cards and how they function to protect the soaps.
One of the nice things about this exhibition is that it gives us a chance to really look back at this archive by Bertillon and to reconsider these individuals, think more about them as human beings and less about them as criminals, especially since many of them probably were not, and to think about how we might correct that record.
Once I got transferred to the federal prison system, I started creating Apocalyptine 1638-9067, a 15-foot by 40-foot artwork comprised of 39 prison bed sheets with thousands of images that are transferred out of the New York Times. It's basically a very big surrealist landscape of everything that happened in the world over a period of 3 years as a way of unveiling and uncovering this kind of mass destruction of people.
We have some of the newsprint photographs that you transferred.
My first attempt to transfer one of these, I made the sheet wet, put the image face down, and it transferred the ink, but it just made the ink bleed. It was not the right viscosity. I looked at the commissary list to see what possible medium I could get, and hair gel was like, oh, well, that's like a liquid, but it still has a bit of tactility to it. And when I peeled the sheet off, it left the exact image.
I think it's so interesting too to see them saved like this and to be able to kind of unearth each of these stories and go back and think about what they meant at the time and how they relate to today, because a lot of them do have so much resonance now. It's what makes Apocalyptine so interesting.
The middle section of Apocalyptine is the Earth section. Everything below the Earth section is the depiction of hell, and that is comprised mostly of commercial advertisements. The Heaven section will depict within each panel silhouetted female ballerina figures with male heads, which depict the executive, the legislative, or the judicial branch. But I don't know if people would see heaven as just being heaven, or heaven could be hell, because again, all of the images and everything you're seeing is inverted, so that could potentially end up inverting the entire structuring of the system. in utilizing the federal prison bed sheets made in the prison by other people who are incarcerated as slave labor to cover and hide their bodies at night. People can then understand the humanity behind these numbers and statistics, and I think it just radically changes how people engage with an issue. For the new work that I'm making for this exhibition, Naxos, a year or two ago, I started asking people on the inside if they could go out into the prison yard and select the ideal pebble. And I started wrapping them in threads.
So Jesse transferred the ink from apocalyptine onto the threads that dangle and hold the pebbles that were shared with him by incarcerated people around the country. So there's a one-to-one, a sort of mirror image between the threads that hang in Naxos and apocalyptine across the gallery.
Since I came home, both myself and Russell Craig, another formerly incarcerated artist, had created the Right of Return Fellowship, funding formerly incarcerated artists across the country. And we have expanded that into the Center for Art and Advocacy. We are trying to create a system that repairs some of those harms and creates support that they need in order to thrive as an artist. The thing that can't be said enough about people who are incarcerated is that they are people. And so Naxos is like a really, I think, important way to capture some of the essence of what mass incarceration feels and looks like, because it's made up of close to 10,000 pebbles. Museums are the place that we display what is important. And if you contrast that with what prisons are created for as institutions, they are literally created to hide people. They were created to hide people behind walls. To know that the works that I made inside of a prison cell in the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania, are joining the collection of the Met as something that is valued. It's a profound honor because we are taking something that is discarded, people who are discarded, and we are saying very publicly that these people matter, that they contribute something very positive to our community.